The night on Orion Station was always heavy with noise, people rushing through metal halls, traders shouting and machines humming. But tonight, something different caught everyone's eye. In the middle of the main market, under the flickering neon lights, a small figure sat on the cold floor. It was a girl, but not human. Her skin was pale gray, her hair dirty and tangled, her eyes glowing faint green. She wore torn clothes, her face covered in dust. People walked past her quickly, whispering. "She is infected," one man said. "She is cursed," another woman whispered. "No one should touch her," a guard muttered, pulling his child away. The alien girl coughed weakly, reaching out a trembling hand for food, but every human pulled back. They feared her, called her dirty, called her dangerous. Even the station police warned everyone not to get close. Rumors spread like fire. Some said she escaped from a secret lab. Some said her kind carried deadly sickness. Others said she was not even alive, just a broken experiment. Among the crowd stood a young man named Daniel. He was no soldier, no leader, just a worker fixing machines in the lower decks. But when he saw the alien girl, something in his heart refused to walk away. He watched her shiver, watched her eyes search for kindness, and find nothing. Daniel thought of himself when he first came to the station, alone, hungry, and ignored. He had promised never to let another soul feel that way if he could help it. "Don't do it," a trader warned him as Daniel stepped closer. "She will bring you trouble." But Daniel ignored the voices. He knelt down, offering her a small piece of bread from his pocket. The alien girl stared at him, surprised. Her fingers shook as she took the bread and ate it slowly. Tears rolled down her dusty cheeks. For the first time, she whispered in broken human words, "Thank you." Daniel felt the crowd. Had his eyes on him, cold and judging. He knew what they thought. Helping her meant danger, maybe even punishment. But Daniel made his choice. He lifted the weak alien girl in his arms, ignoring the gasps and whispers. "She is not trash," he said softly to himself. "She needs help." He carried her through the narrow halls of the station. Security guards turned their heads but did not stop him. They only muttered, "Foolish human." Daniel reached his small apartment in the workers' block, a room with metal walls and a single bed. He laid her down gently, giving her water from a cracked cup. The girl drank slowly, eyes never leaving his face. She looked confused, as if she had never been treated with kindness before. Daniel knew she needed more than food. Her skin was covered in dirt. Her clothes smelled of smoke. She looked half dead. So he guided her to the small shower in the corner. Steam filled the room as warm water flowed. The alien girl flinched at first, unused to comfort, but then she let the water run over her skin. The dirt washed away, revealing strange patterns underneath. Daniel froze, staring. On her arms and back, glowing lines appeared like silver fire. They moved slowly, alive like rivers of light. They were not tattoos, not scars. They were something more. The girl touched one glowing line, her hand trembling. She whispered a word in her own language, too soft for Daniel to understand. Her eyes closed as if she feared what he might think. Daniel felt a chill down his spine. He had only wanted to help a weak, dirty girl, but now he saw something else, something dangerous and powerful hidden inside her. He whispered, "What are you?" The alien girl looked at him, fear in her glowing eyes. For a long moment she said nothing. Then in broken words she answered, "They hunt me." Outside the thin walls of Daniel's home, heavy boots echoed in the hall. Someone was searching the workers' block. The girl pressed her hand to her lips, begging for silence. Daniel's heart pounded as shadows moved under his door. He realized he had not just saved a helpless stranger, he had taken in a target, and now danger was already at his door. The boots outside Daniel's door grew louder, echoing through the thin metal hallway. The alien girl's body shook, her glowing lines fading dim as if her skin wanted to hide them. She pulled Daniel's arm, whispering, "Please, no noise." Daniel's breath came hard, his chest tight with fear. He knew the patrols would not knock kindly. They would break the door, drag her away, maybe kill him too. Through the small crack at the bottom of the door, a shadow passed, then another. The voices outside were deep and sharp. "Check every room." Daniel held his breath, pressing the girl against the wall. The sound of metal boots stopped right in front of his door. For a long burning moment, silence filled the room. The girl's green eyes shined in the dim light, begging Daniel not to move. Then, as if by chance, the boots continued walking, fading slowly down the hall. Daniel exhaled, his hands shaking. They were safe for now. He turned to her, whispering fiercely, "Why are they after you? What are you hiding?" The alien girl looked at him with fear and sorrow. Her voice was broken, words slow like a child learning to speak. "They hurt my people. They cut. They burn." She touched the glowing lines on her arm, her expression pained. "They want this. They want me." Daniel frowned, staring at the marks. They were not random, they moved with strange rhythm, almost like living maps. "Is it disease?" he asked. The girl shook her head quickly. "No. Gift." Her voice lowered. "Power. Not mine, but Blood's." Daniel did not understand fully. But he knew one thing. These marks made her valuable. Too valuable and dangerous. He brought her food from his small storage, dry bread and water. She ate slowly, as if she had not eaten in days. After finishing, she leaned back, exhausted, her eyes closed. Her lips whispered strange words in her own tongue. The sounds were soft, but they carried a weight Daniel could feel in his chest. It was like prayer, or maybe memory. He sat watching her, wondering what storm he had stepped into. Hours later, the station grew quiet again. Daniel used the silence to ask more. "What is your name?" The girl hesitated, then said, "Lyra." Her voice cracked on the word, as if the name itself carried pain. Daniel repeated it softly, "Lyra." It felt strange on his tongue, but also real. Lyra opened her eyes, staring at him with something new. "Trust," she whispered. "You help. Why?" Daniel did not answer right away. He only said, "Because no one else would." That night, Daniel could not sleep. His mind replayed the whispers of the crowd, the glowing lines, the patrol outside his door. He knew hiding Lyra was dangerous, but leaving her to die felt worse. When morning lights flickered on in the station, news spread quickly. A group of strange agents had arrived from the outer systems. They asked about a runaway alien with special features. Posters appeared on walls, showing blurred images of her gray skin and glowing eyes. Daniel tore one down, his stomach tight. The hunters were closing in. Back in his room, Lyra sat near the window, staring at the endless stars outside. Her face was calm, but her hands shook. Daniel sat beside her, whispering, "They put bounty on you." Lyra's lips pressed tight. She said, "Yes, they never stop." She leaned closer, her voice trembling. "If they take me, many die." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Her eyes met his, deep green, glowing. "Inside me. Secret, old power," she whispered. They use, they break worlds." Daniel felt his throat go dry. He was only a worker, a nobody, but now he held a girl who carried secrets heavy enough to destroy planets. He whispered, "Why trust me? Why not run alone?" Lyra lowered her head, her voice soft. "Because you gave bread." Simple words, yet they cut Daniel deeper than anything. Kindness had chained his fate to hers. Later that day, Daniel heard another knock, softer this time. He froze, hand reaching for the old wrench by his bed. Through the door came a woman's voice. "Daniel, it's Mara. Open up." Mara was his neighbor, a sharp-eyed trader who often helped him with parts. Daniel opened a crack, trying to hide his nerves. She leaned in, whispering, "The soldiers are searching block by block. They will be here tonight." Her eyes darted past him, catching a glimpse of Lyra inside. Mara's face hardened. "You fool! You're hiding her." Daniel's heart sank, but before he could answer, Lyra stepped forward, her glowing lines faintly visible again. Mara's eyes widened in shock, her voice shaking. "Do you know what she is?" The room filled with heavy silence. Daniel felt the world closing in, walls pressing tighter. Lyra whispered, "Danger comes." And before Daniel could ask, the lights in the room flickered. Outside, the sound of boots returned, louder this time, not just 2 or 3, but many. Daniel gripped the wrench, his knuckles white. The hunters had come, and now the real chase was about to begin. The knock on Daniel's door never came. Instead, the sound of heavy boots filled the hallway like thunder. Soldiers shouting orders, their radios crackling with static. Daniel pressed his back to the wall, clutching the old wrench in his hand, his heart pounding so loud he feared they would hear it. Beside him, Lyra stood frozen, the glowing lines under her skin dimming as if she was trying to hide them. Her eyes darted toward the window, small, and sealed shut with rusted bolts. "No escape that way," Mara, the neighbor, whispered sharply. "They're scanning each room. They'll be here any second. You need to decide now." Daniel's thoughts raced. He wanted to scream at Mara to leave, but she looked at him with something between fear and pity. Lyra's voice broke the silence, soft but firm. "They smell me," Daniel frowned, confused. "Smell you?" She nodded. "Not nose. Machine. They feel my blood." Her trembling hand pointed toward the hall where soldiers moved closer, scanning devices beeping like hungry predators. Mara cursed under her breath. "If they catch you with her, Daniel, they'll burn you alive." Daniel's grip tightened on the wrench, but he forced himself to whisper, "Then help me hide her." Mara stared at him like he had lost his mind, but before she could argue, Lyra stepped closer, touching Daniel's arm. Her eyes glowed faintly, and suddenly Daniel felt a strange heat inside his chest. Lyra whispered words in her own tongue, soft and quick. The glow in her skin pulsed once, twice, then vanished. "Now," she said, "they cannot smell me for short time." Daniel blinked, dizzy from the strange warmth inside him. Mara pulled them both toward her room across the hall, moving fast. They slipped through her door just as soldiers reached Daniel's. Through the thin walls they heard it, the hiss of doors forced open, the crash of boots stomping inside, the sound of things thrown to the floor. Daniel clenched his teeth, listening to them destroy his small home. One soldier shouted, "She's close, keep scanning." Daniel shut his eyes, praying the strange trick Lyra used would last. Minutes felt like hours, but finally the boots moved farther away down the hall. The radio voices echoed, "Nothing here. Check the next block." When silence returned, Daniel opened his eyes, sweat dripping from his forehead. Mara Lesham, hand against the wall, breathing hard. "You're insane, both of you." But she did not push them out. Instead, she poured water into a cracked cup and handed it to Lyra. The alien girl drank slowly, her hands still shaking. Daniel whispered, "How long can you hide us like that?" Lyra shook her head. "Not long. Power burns me." Her glowing lines flickered faintly, almost like dying fire. Daniel's chest tightened, seeing her pain. He asked, "Why risk it? Why not run alone?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Because they always catch alone." She looked at him with quiet sadness. "But with you, maybe not." Mara's sharp eyes studied them both. She whispered, "You don't understand, Daniel. This isn't about a runaway girl. This is bigger. I've heard rumors. Ships destroyed, outposts gone dark, all because of experiments like her." Daniel frowned. "She's not an experiment. She's a person." Mara's voice grew cold. "To you, maybe, but to them, she's a weapon. And if you keep her, you'll both be hunted across the stars." Before Daniel could answer, Lyra suddenly grabbed his wrist, her green eyes wide. "Danger again," she whispered, her voice sharp with fear. Daniel felt it too, a strange pressure in the air, like the station itself was holding its breath. Then came the sound, distant but clear. Ships docking in the upper bays. Heavy ships, not traders, not patrols. Mara went pale. "Reinforcements, they've brought in mercenaries." Daniel's stomach twisted. He realized the hunt had only just begun. That night, the station turned into a cage. Every corridor had patrols, scanners buzzing, voices barking orders. Daniel, Mara, and Lyra hid in the shadows, moving only when the noise of machines covered their steps. The fear in Daniel's chest never faded. Every door, every corner, felt like death waiting. Lyra's glow stayed faint, her body weak from using her power. Daniel supported her with one arm as they slipped through maintenance tunnels, places only workers knew. At one point, they nearly got caught. A pair of soldiers stopped near the tunnel entrance, their scanners blinking red. Daniel pressed Lyra against the wall, his body shielding hers, his hand covering her mouth. He felt her heart race against his chest. The soldiers argued, one saying, "She's here," the other replying, "False reading. These tunnels are full of old power lines." After a long pause, they left, their voices fading into the distance. Daniel let out the breath he had been holding, his legs shaking with relief. Hours later, they reached an abandoned cargo bay. Dust covered the floor, broken crates stacked high, the perfect place to rest. Daniel laid Lyra down gently, her breathing heavy, her eyes half closed. Mara whispered, "You can't keep this up, Daniel. They'll find her, they'll find you, and then we'll all be dead." Daniel stared at Lyra, remembering the moment she said, "Thank you," in the market. The moment she trusted him with her name. His voice was steady. "Then I'll keep running, until they can't." Lyra opened her eyes weakly, her voice a whisper. "They fear me, because of truth." Daniel leaned closer. "What truth?" But before she could answer, the cargo bay doors echoed with the clang of metal. Boots marched outside, radios buzzed, voices shouted, "Search this bay!" Daniel's stomach dropped. He knew the hunt had found them again. He gripped his wrench, pulling Lyra behind the crates, his mind racing. This time, escape would not be easy. This time, the hunters would not leave empty-handed. The cargo bay shook with the sound of boots, voices shouting commands, scanners humming with sharp beeps. Daniel pulled Lyra deeper behind the broken crates, pressing a finger to his lips. Mara crouched beside them, her eyes sharp with fear and anger. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "They'll tear this station apart until they find her." Daniel's jaw tightened, his hand still gripping the wrench, his mind racing for a way out. The soldiers spread across the bay, flashlights cutting through the dust. One of them kicked open crates. Another scanned the walls. Daniel could hear the steady beep of their devices. Closer and closer. Lyra's glowing marks pulsed faintly, like frightened fire under her skin. She whispered, "They feel me again." Daniel whispered back. Then we can't stay here. Suddenly, Mara grabbed his arm, her voice low but fierce. There's a ship docked at the far end, half broken, but it can fly. I know the codes. I can get us out. Daniel looked at her, doubt in his eyes. Why help us? Mara's lips twisted into a bitter smile. Because if they catch her here, this whole block dies. They won't leave survivors. Daniel swallowed hard, realizing she was right. He nodded. Then lead us. The three of them crawled through the shadows, slipping past stacks of crates. The soldiers moved closer, their scanners beeping faster. One of them shouted, "Signal here, check that corner." Daniel's heart thundered, but they moved faster, reaching a side door at the edge of the bay. Mara punched in the old code, the door hissed open. The sound caught a soldier's ear. There, someone's moving. Shouts filled the air as Daniel pulled Lyra through the door, Mara close behind. The alarm blared, red lights flashing. They ran through narrow corridors, past rusted pipes and leaking vents. Behind them, boots hammered the floor, gunfire cracked, sparks raining from walls. Daniel felt the heat of blaster bolts fly past his shoulder. He held Lyra's hand tight, guiding her forward. Mara shouted, "This way!" leading them down a spiral stair into the docking ring. The old ship sat in the shadows, its metal scarred and paint faded. Half the lights on its hull were broken, but its engines hummed faintly. Mara rushed to the control panel at the ramp, fingers flying over the keys. The ramp dropped with a heavy clang. "Inside!" she shouted. Daniel carried Lyra up, her body weak, her marks glowing brighter as if fear awakened them. Inside, the ship smelled of oil and dust. Broken panels sparked on the walls, seats covered in stains, but to Daniel, it was hope. He laid Lyra gently in one seat and rushed to the cockpit, Mara already strapping in. The engines roared to life, shaking the whole dock. Soldiers poured into the bay, weapons raised. "Don't let them take off," one shouted. The ship's ramp pulled up, sealing them inside. Blaster fire struck the hull, sparks flying, alarms screaming. Mara gritted her teeth. "Hold on." With a deafening roar, the ship lifted, metal groaning as it pulled free from the dock. Through the front window, Daniel saw the station's walls fall away. But then came the sirens, the flashing lights of patrol ships launching after them. The chase began, black space stretched wide, stars sharp and endless. Behind them, sleek hunter ships ignited their thrusters, closing fast. "Strap in," Mara shouted, jerking the controls. The old ship dove between metal towers, weaving through the outer ring of the station. Blaster fire followed, streaks of red cutting through the dark. Daniel's stomach twisted as the ship shook violently. In the back, Lyra pressed her hands to the wall, her marks glowing, her lips moved in strange words, whispers of power. Suddenly, the ship's old shields flickered to life, stronger than they had any right to. OB, blaster bolts struck and bounced away. The hunters slowed, confused. Daniel stared back at her in awe. "You did that," he whispered. Lyra's voice came weak but steady. "Only for short time." Mara pulled the ship hard to the left, dodging between spinning debris. One hunter crashed into an asteroid, fire bursting in silence, but two more stayed close, faster, sharper. "They won't stop," Mara growled. "Someone paid too much for her." Daniel's mind raced. He thought of the posters, the rumors, the whispers of power. He turned to Lyra. "Why such a price on you?" Lyra opened her eyes, her voice trembling. "My blood is key." Daniel frowned. "Key to what?" She looked away, her hands gripping the seat. "To doors. They should never open." Before Daniel could ask more, alarms screamed in the cockpit. Another wave of hunters had jumped from hyperspace ahead of them, blocking the path. Mara cursed, pulling the ship into a steep climb, engines straining. Daniel's stomach lurched as the stars spun wildly. The hunters closed in from all sides, weapons locking. Lyra's glow flared brighter, the air inside the ship buzzing with strange energy. Her voice rose, louder now, filled with force. The old engines screamed as if alive. The ship surged forward with impossible speed. Light wrapped around them, and in a flash, they vanished from the hunters' sights. Silence fell, broken only by the ship's heavy-breathing engines. Daniel looked out the window. The hunters gone, the station now a distant speck. They had escaped, for now. He turned to Lyra, her body slumped, her glow fading, her eyes closed, exhausted from the power she had given. Daniel whispered, "Rest, you're safe." But in his heart he knew the truth. They were only at the beginning of something far greater. The ship drifted in silence after the jump, its engines coughing weakly, lights flickering as if the old vessel was ready to die. Daniel sat in the cockpit beside Mara, his hands trembling on the armrest, his eyes staring at the endless black beyond the window. Behind them, Lyra lay slumped in her seat, her glowing lines faint as dying embers. Daniel whispered, "She pushed us too far." Mara shook her head, checking the failing systems. No, this ship was already falling apart. She only gave us a little more life. Alarms blinked on the console. Low fuel, overheating thrusters, broken stabilizers. Mara cursed, pounding her fist on the controls. "We can't keep running. They'll track us again. We need to land, hide, repair," Daniel asked. "Where?" His voice tight with worry. Mara scanned the star charts, her eyes narrowing. "There's a world not far, a dead one. No colonies, no trade, forgotten long ago." Daniel frowned. "Safe." Mara's lips twisted. "Or deadly, but it's our only chance." The ship groaned as it entered orbit around the forgotten planet. Its surface stretched gray and silent, covered in broken mountains and vast deserts of ash. Ruins dotted the land like bones, strange towers half buried in dust. Daniel stared out the window, whispering, "What happened here?" Mara muttered, "War, maybe worse." Lyra stirred, her eyes half opening, her weak voice drifting. "I know this place." Daniel turned sharply. "You've been here before." Lyra's eyes shone faintly, her words heavy with memory. "Not me. My blood." Her gaze lingered on the ruins below. "This was ours." Daniel's chest tightened, realizing this dead world once belonged to her people. Mara muttered, "Then maybe it's cursed." Daniel ignored her, focusing on Lyra's trembling hands. The ship landed roughly, skidding across cracked stone before settling with a groan. Dust rose in thick clouds, choking the air outside. Daniel helped Lyra to her feet, wrapping her in a blanket. Mara opened the hatch, dry wind rushing in, carrying the smell of burned metal. They stepped out together, their boots crunching against the ash. The ruins loomed around them, silent towers broken like old teeth. Lyra walked slowly, her bare feet touching the ground with strange reverence. Her glowing lines brightened slightly as if the planet recognized her. Daniel noticed the change, whispering, "It feels alive to you." Lyra nodded weakly. "This place remembers." Her voice trembled. "My kind lived here before the fall." Mara frowned. "The fall." Lyra's eyes darkened. "When we fought ourselves. When power broke our world." They reached a shattered temple at the edge of a canyon. Stone walls cracked, carvings worn by time. Inside, strange symbols glowed faintly, pulsing like Lyra's own skin. She touched the wall, and the symbols flared brighter, filling the chamber with light. Daniel's heart raced. The ruins were not dead. They were waiting. Mara stepped back, fear in her eyes. "This isn't right, Daniel. These ruins know her." Lyra closed her eyes, whispering in her language. The ground vibrated softly, dust falling from the ceiling. Daniel touched her shoulder. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Her voice came low. "Showing you truth." The walls shifted, revealing hidden markings. They formed a great circle, maps of stars, lines pointing to places far beyond. At the center was an image of her people, glowing with power. Daniel whispered, "It's history." Lyra's voice cracked. "And warning." She turned to him, her eyes shining with fear and sadness. "My blood is not only power, it is key to these doors." She pointed at the circle, her hand shaking. "If they take me, they open all, and burn more worlds." Daniel felt cold spread through his chest, understanding now why the hunters chased her, not just for control, but for something greater, something terrifying. Mara muttered, "Then we should leave her, let them take her, or kill her before they get the chance." Daniel spun, fury in his eyes. "No." His voice echoed in the chamber, strong and unshaking. "She's not a weapon, she's a person, and she trusted me." Lyra stared at him, her lips trembling, her voice soft. "You still stand?" Daniel nodded. "I promised I would." Before more could be said, a distant roar filled the canyon, engines loud and many echoing across the ash-filled sky. Mara's face paled. "They found us already." Daniel's chest tightened. "How?" Lyra whispered, her glow dimming again. "My blood always calls them." The ground shook as ships descended, black silhouettes cutting through the dusty clouds. Soldiers poured out, armored and armed, their red visors glowing in the haze. Daniel pulled Lyra back, his wrench still in his hand, though it looked useless against so many. Mara drew a small blaster from her belt, her face hard. "We'll fight, but it won't be enough." Daniel's mind raced, desperate. "There has to be a way out." Lyra pressed her hands to the glowing circle on the wall, whispering words older than the ruins. The symbols blazed bright, the chamber vibrating with hidden power. Daniel felt the air ripple, as if the planet itself was waking. Mara shouted, "What is she doing?" Daniel stared, awe and fear mixing in his eyes. "She's opening something." The ruins trembled, stones cracking, dust falling in thick waves. The hunters outside shouted, their boots pounding closer. The glow grew blinding, wrapping around Lyra like fire. Daniel shielded his eyes, calling her name. Her voice rose above the roar. "Truth comes." And in that moment, Daniel realized the forgotten planet held more than history. It held secrets that could change everything, and now those secrets were awake. The ruins shook as the hunters closed in, their boots pounding through the dust, voices barking orders, weapons ready. Inside the glowing chamber, Daniel stood with his wrench raised, his eyes fixed on the soldiers pouring from the canyon mouth. Mara aimed her blaster, her face pale but steady, and Lyra pressed both hands against the shining circle, her body trembling as the ancient power responded. Symbols blazed across the stone, spilling light into the darkness. The air vibrated, the floor cracked, and a low hum filled the chamber. Daniel shouted over the noise, "Lyra, stop! You'll tear this place apart!" But her voice rose in broken human words. "Only way, truth, must show." The light surged, wrapping her body in streams of fire. The hunters stormed into the temple, their red visors glowing through the haze. Their leader stepped forward, tall and armored, his voice sharp like steel. "Stand aside, human. The girl belongs to us." Daniel's heart hammered, but he stood in front of her, wrench gripped tight. "She belongs to no one," he said, his voice rough but steady. The leader laughed coldly, raising his weapon. "Then you'll die for her." Mara fired first, her blaster screaming blue light. One soldier fell, but three more charged in, gunfire blazing, sparks raining as stone walls cracked. Daniel swung his wrench, knocking one soldier off balance, grabbing his weapon and tossing it aside. But more came, endless, filling the chamber like a flood. Daniel's chest burned, his arms heavy, yet he refused to step back. Behind him, Lyra cried out, her glowing lines burning brighter. The floor split open, a hidden stair revealed under the temple's heart. The hunters froze for a moment, their visors reflecting the light. The leader hissed, "There it is, the gate." Daniel turned confused. "Gate," Lyra whispered through tears. "Door to old power, forbidden." Before Daniel could speak, Mara's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and cold. "She's opening it, and you're helping her. You're insane." Daniel snapped his head toward her. "Mara, not now." But Mara's eyes were hard, her blaster lowering, not at the soldiers, but at him. "You don't understand, Daniel. I made a deal. They promised me freedom if I delivered her." Daniel's stomach dropped, his chest tight with betrayal. "You led us here," he whispered, his voice broken. Mara's jaw clenched. "I led you away from worse. I saved you. But I won't die for her." The leader stepped closer, his gun aimed at Lyra. "Then hand her over." Mara hesitated, her hands trembling, caught between greed and guilt. Lyra looked at Daniel, her eyes full of pain. "She betray," she whispered, her voice weak. Daniel's throat burned, but he stood taller, his voice low and firm. "Then she betrays me too." He turned to Mara, his eyes filled with fury. "If you hand her over, you'll regret it forever." Mara flinched, her blaster shaking in her hands, but before she could choose, the ruins roared. The glowing gate burst open, wind screaming through the chamber. Symbols spun like fire across the walls. The ground trembled, dust falling in heavy clouds. From the open stair, a deep light rose, strange and alive. The hunters staggered, their leader shouting, "Hold the line!" But even his voice cracked with fear. Lyra collapsed, the glow ripping from her body into the gate. Daniel caught her, holding her tight as her breath came shallow, her voice barely a whisper. "They fear this more than me." Daniel looked into the rising light, his skin crawling. It was beautiful and terrible, like a star bleeding inside the earth. He shouted, "What is it?" Lyra's lips trembled. "Power, older than stars, not meant for hands." The hunters advanced, desperate now, weapons raised. Mara made her choice, spinning and firing at the bow. Her voice breaking. "I can't do it, Daniel. I can't give her up." For a moment, Daniel saw the old Mara again, sharp but loyal, but it was too late. A soldier's shot struck her side. She fell hard, blood staining the ash, her blaster sliding away. Daniel shouted her name, but she only met his eyes once, whispering, "Run," before collapsing still. Rage burned in Daniel's chest, stronger than fear. He grabbed the fallen blaster, firing wild at the soldiers. Lyra's glow flared again, not from strength but from desperation. She raised her hands weakly, whispering words that shook the chamber. The light from the gate exploded, blinding all. The hunters screamed as the energy struck them, their armor sparking, their bodies thrown like broken dolls. The leader staggered, his visor cracked, his voice a roar. "You can't stop us, girl. We will take you, dead or alive." Daniel stood in front of her, his chest heaving, blaster raised. "You'll take nothing," he growled. The chamber burned with light, the ruins shaking as if the planet itself was alive again. Dust and stone rained from above, the canyon echoing with thunder. Daniel pulled Lyra to her feet, though she could barely stand. Her eyes met his, glowing bright even through her weakness. Her voice cracked. "Truth is here. Now choice comes." Daniel swallowed hard, realizing she meant him, not the hunters. The truth was open, the gate awake, the power alive, and now he had to choose, protect her or unleash her. The chamber burned with light, ancient power roaring like a storm. The gate stood open, spilling rivers of energy that twisted through the ruins. Hunters staggered in the glow, their weapons sparking, their armor cracking under the weight of something far greater. Daniel held Lyra close, her body weak, her glowing lines flaring like fire struggling to live. She whispered, "Choice now, or all ends." The leader of the hunters raised his broken visor, his face pale but his voice foreign. "Give her to us, human. We will bind the power, we will control it." Daniel's jaw tightened, his chest heaving with anger. He shouted back, "You've only ever tried to chain what you don't understand." The leader sneered. "And you, worker, you think you can protect her. You think you matter." His gun aimed at Lyra, his finger ready. Before he could fire, the ground split open, the ruins howling as pillars of light rose from the earth. The soldiers were thrown back, some screaming as they vanished into the glow. Daniel shielded Lyra with his body, his skin burning with the heat. When he opened his eyes, the leader still stood, stubborn, furious. He shouted, "If I must, I'll drag her through the gate myself." Daniel raised his blaster, hands shaking but steady enough. "Not while I breathe," he said, his voice hard. The two men stared at each other, a worker against a soldier, a nobody against a leader. The air between them pulsed with the breath of the gate. Lyra lifted her hand weakly, her glow spreading into Daniel's chest again. He felt the strange warmth, heavier than before, as if she poured what little remained of herself into him. Her voice was faint. "Stand. With me." Daniel nodded once, his voice breaking. "Always." The leader charged, his weapon raised. Daniel fired, the shot striking his armor but not stopping him. They crashed together, the blaster knocked away, Daniel's wrench smashing against metal plates. The fight was brutal, fast and desperate. Daniel's body ached, blood on his lip, but he refused to fall. The leader struck him hard, sending him crashing into the stone. Pain seared his chest, but still he rose, wrench tight in his hand. Behind them, Lyra stood on trembling legs, her glow brighter, her voice louder. She cried words in her language, ancient and sharp. The gate answered, the energy rising like a wave. The ruins shook, the canyon splitting, the planet groaning as if alive. The hunters still left screamed in terror, fleeing into the dust. Only the leader remained, fury in his eyes. He lunged again, shouting, "She is mine!" Daniel met him head on, wrench swinging with all his strength. The metal cracked, the leader stumbled, and in that moment, Lyra raised her arms, her glow exploding into pure fire. The energy swallowed the leader, his scream lost in the roar. In seconds, he was gone, burned away by the truth he tried to control. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of the gate. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping for air. Lyra collapsed beside him, her body almost weightless in his arms. Her eyes flickered open, glowing softer now. She whispered, "It is finished." Daniel shook his head. "No, it's just beginning." The gate still roared, wild and dangerous. Daniel looked at her, fear in his chest. "How do we close it?" Lyra's lips trembled. "My blood can seal, but cost is me." Daniel's throat closed, his heart pounding. "No, there has to be another way." Her hand touched his cheek, warm but fading. Her eyes filled with tears. "You gave me kindness, you gave me family, but this is what I must give back." Daniel gripped her hand tight, his voice breaking. "I won't lose you." Lyra smiled softly, her glow spreading into the chamber. "Not lost," she whispered, "only changed." Her body lifted in the light, her marks blazing like stars. She cried out one final word, and the gate shuddered. The energy pulled inward, collapsing with a deafening roar. The ruins shook, dust raining, the canyon trembling, then silence, the light gone, the gate sealed forever. Daniel knelt in the dust, the chamber empty. His arms held only the echo of where she had been. His chest ached, his eyes burned, but deep inside warmth remained. Her glow lived in him now, faint but steady. He whispered her name, Lyra, his voice breaking, and in the quiet, he felt her answer, not in sound but in spirit. She was not gone. She was part of him. Outside, the hunters' ships lay in ruin. Their crews scattered or fled. The planet, once dead, now hummed softly with peace. Daniel stood alone in the dust, the stars above endless and cold. He had been a simple worker, a nobody. Now he carried the truth of a fallen people, the gift of a girl everyone called dirty. He whispered to the empty sky, "She was no weapon, no curse. She was my family." Daniel turned toward the broken ship waiting in the canyon, the path ahead uncertain, the galaxy still filled with enemies. But his steps were steady, his eyes fierce, because he knew now what it meant to fight, not for glory, not for power, but for the promise he made, the promise to a girl who had trusted him when no one else would.